miss these guys. I haven't seen them at the rink for way too long, but it's nice to be at least somewhat near Louis DeBrusque and Mark Spector as we get set for the return of hockey. And Louis, the Edmonton Oilers have had such a good season, lots of excitement about being in the playoffs, but now they face Chicago. How do you, what's kind of your first reaction to knowing that that will be the matchup for the Oilers?
Dangerous matchup. That was the first thing that came to my mind, was a team that started to play better and really started to crawl up the standings and be a threat to potentially get in there if they continued to win games and the right teams lost. It was a long shot to get in there, but they certainly had climbed up into a position where I think they should have been at anyway. I think it was a tough start to the season for the Chicago Blackhawks, and I think they started to play their best hockey down the stretch. Listen, when you have a core with the likes of Taves, Duncan Keith, Patrick Kane, you have Brandon Saad that's been there, won Stanley Cups, and obviously Corey Crawford. This is a team that knows how to win. They have some great young talent in that lineup as well. For me, this is a dangerous matchup for the Edmonton Oilers, and one that they lost 2 of the 3 games in the regular season. So it will be a tough one. But the one area for me that I look at is the defense of the Chicago Blackhawks, and that's where I think that the Edmonton Oilers have to capitalize, and I believe that's where the series will be won and lost, how aggressively they can get in, how much pressure they can put on them. And if they can exploit them in that regard, the forwards and the talent of the Edmonton Oilers should come through. This will be a great series, though. This is not an easy series. This is a real tough one.
Mark, Louis just talked about the defense of the Chicago Blackhawks, which was once a part of their strength in winning 3 Stanley Cups. When you look at the Oilers' defense, Mark, might they maybe not have a name player like Duncan Keith, but maybe have more depth throughout their top 6 defensemen in order for them to be maybe a little bit stronger in the blue line than the Hawks are?
Yeah, they're a little bit better. Neither team is a defensive juggernaut, right? Take a cruise through the NHL.com stats page, and you'll find that Chicago gives up the most high-quality scoring chances in the entire National Hockey League. And in terms of goals against, Chicago's way down. Edmonton gives up a lot of goals, too. Hey, it'll be fun because I think Edmonton has the kind of defense, Gene, that can get the puck in the hands of the right people up front. They've got a younger, less proven defense, but a better overall decor than the Blackhawks. And the Blackhawks, let's face it, they don't defend well. I think you got 2 teams that get scored on some here, which gives me a bunch of 5-4 hockey games, which personally I love watching 5-4 hockey games.
Take that.
When you look at the Edmonton Oilers and Dave Tippett decided to split up Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid, Mark, you first, and Louis, you second. Is there any chance that they would ever get back together again, or would it just take some sort of a desperate act for the Oilers to reunite Draisaitl and McDavid?
Well, this is clearly now the Crosby-Malkin model, Gino, and the Oilers are a way tougher team to play against now that they have Connor McDavid on one line and Leon Draisaitl on another line. Who does your first defensive pairing play against? In this case, Jonathan Taves, does he get, he's the really only top defensive centerman. Does he get Connor McDavid? Okay. Who gets Leon Draisaitl? Is it going to be Strome? Is it going to be young Kirby Dach? He's 18 years old. So those 2 guys are only ever going to play together at 5-on-5 hockey when the Oilers come out of the dressing room maybe down 4-2 after 2 periods, and the coach says, well, nothing's working great tonight. Let's put them together. But make no mistake, guys, the Oilers are a far, far better team with those 2 players centering their own lines.
I agree, Spec. I don't think there's any question that once they split up McDavid and Draisaitl, this team became a different team, and it became a deeper team and almost like an unmatchable matchup for the opposition when you look at it in that regard. There's only a few teams in the league that can match up head-to-head with McDavid and Draisaitl. You mentioned one of them in the Pittsburgh Penguins with Crosby and Malkin. I just think it's a winning formula for them, and I do believe it also changed the mentality and the identity of the team. I think they understood that for them to win, for them to be successful, they're going to have to play as a team, and they're going to have to spread that wealth out and make sure they're a deeper team, especially in the Western Conference. I agree with you again, Spec, on the other fact that they're just deeper in the center position. Kirby Dach has had a terrific rookie year, and I think he's gotten better every game. He's a big, strong, young kid that's going to be a dynamite centerman in this National Hockey League for a long time. I think Dylan Strome was also starting to come into his own. They have a dangerous forward group. They really do. They can put the puck in the net with the best of them. They can make plays. They can score. They like to play that open game. again, I think it goes back to the defense of the Chicago Blackhawks and the Edmonton Oilers for that matter. Whatever team can exploit the most in the opposition's end, I think will win the series. I look at that last game, the third game of the matchup between them. They were down 3-0. They were down 4-1, but they came back and made that a game 4-3 once they went to work. Edmonton did. Chicago won 2 of the 3 games because they scored a lot of goals and they were a little more offensive. But when Edmonton decided to buckle down and play the right way, it was an entirely different game. You have to neutralize the offensive skill of the forwards of the Chicago Blackhawks, and you have to get to their D. It'll be a great series. And I'll tell you what, I would love to call that series. I think that'd be an amazing series to be a part of because, like you said, Spec, I think that's just going to be a back-and-forth affair, and it's going to be a battle.
Louis, you discussed Corey Crawford, who is a Stanley Cup champion. Louis, you first, Mark, you second. If you're Dave Tippett, you're getting ready to take on the Chicago Blackhawks. Who is your starting netminder, Louis, then Mark, and why?
Boy, really interesting. And I would have to go with Mike Smith. And that would be a fairly easy decision for me right now, only because of what he did throughout this year and the stretches that he put together. Plus, let's face it, he's a veteran. He's a veteran. He's been in those positions before, and he's been in the playoffs, and he knows what to do in those situations and how to buckle down. That's the only reason I would make that decision. I think both goaltenders have had their time this year, but for Mike Smith, it comes down to the fact that he's been there before a number of times, and he knows what to do. Give him the first shot. If it doesn't work out, you always have a great guy to fall back on.
Well, that's the difficult question, guys. I mean, let's go back to our last question. The Oilers got to where they got to, pushing near the top of the Pacific, because they put 29 and 97 on separate lines. So do you walk in the playoffs and put them back in the same line? No, you don't, because you found something that works good for you. So in goal, the Oilers played both guys. You know, it was a 55-45 split with Koskinen actually playing more games. And yeah, Smith has, I probably start Smith in the first game too, but I go into this thing saying I might start Koskinen in the second game because really that was the successful formula that Dave Tippett found for both these guys. Mike Smith is an older guy. He can't play every single game for you. And Mikko Koskinen has shown that when he doesn't have to play every single game, he's really good. So, you know what? Who cares who starts the first game? I have a feeling another guy could start the second game.
That's a great option to have. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Well, let's discuss Patrick Kane, because he might be that X factor, that wild card that could turn things really in favor of Chicago. Mark, Patrick Kane is one of the great players of all time, and certainly will be there once his career is over. How much concern should or would the Oilers have specifically for him?
Well, one of the great money players of all time, right? One of the great, 2 minutes left in the game and we're trailing by one. One of the great OT players. He'll go down in his generation as one of the most dangerous guys in 3-on-3. So what's the formula for the Chicago Blackhawks to win this series, right? Corey Crawford has got to be all world. This guy won two Stanley Cups. He's got to keep this game close enough so that with 2 minutes left, Patrick Kane is only within one or tied or maybe leading, but he can do his magic, late in the game and in overtime. Chicago's not blowing Edmonton out here 3 games out of 5. Not going to happen. They got to stick with the Oilers. They got to just hang around so that the things we're saying here about Patrick Kane matter, because it's not a 3-goal game with 2 minutes left, but it's a 1-goal game or tied.
Yeah, one of the most dynamic players we've ever seen in the history of the game. He's an incredible performer. And as you said, Mark, when the game means the most is when Patrick Kane steps up and plays as big than it's ever. And we've seen that through history. A 3-time Stanley Cup champion. This guy's been a big part of all of them. And you know what? Some huge game-winning goals in critical times. He loves the limelight. He loves that feeling of being in that moment at that time to be a difference, and he's been a difference in some big, big games. So you always have to watch him. Again, I go back to neutralizing the forward group. They've got some really high-skilled young talent in Chicago. Alex DeBrincat's had a little bit of an off year this year, considering he scored 40 goals last year and almost 30 in his rookie year. I expect him to be very motivated. We talked already about Kirby Dach, a young centerman that's coming up, but again, getting better every single game. Dylan Strome finding his stride. This is a very offensive group. And listen, Patrick Kane is the most offensive guy on that team. If you're not watching this guy on a regular basis when he's on the ice, you have to make him play without the puck, because when he has it, still one of the most dangerous guys in the game.
Louis, and then Mark, is experience or playoff experience a big deal for Chicago, and is it not a big deal for Edmonton?
That's the age-old question, and I kind of am on the fence here for this one. Sorry to say it, but I think that youthful enthusiasm goes a long way. I really believe it does. I think for the Connor McDavids and Leon Draisaitl's, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, Oscar Klefbom's, these guys that haven't had a ton of playoff experience, but they've been wanting it. They've been desiring it. They're going to be ready to go. This is a team that's very dangerous because of that enthusiasm, because of the high offensive skill they have. The Chicago Blackhawks, though, are a team, and that's why I said dangerous right out of the gates. This is a team that's won it. They've won it as a core. They know what to do in those situations, and they can constrict you. They can play a style when they want to that's very difficult to play against. Do they have the ability to do that right now with the makeup of their team from this year? Only time will tell, but I'll tell you what, it's a 50-50. I like both. I love the fact that there's veteran leadership on Chicago, and that's a team that knows how to win. But I also love the fact that the Edmonton Oilers are poised to start breaking through and be a contender, and this is an opportunity for them to show that they're there and ready to do that.
Okay, so I'm going to make the case why there is no playoff experience advantage anymore this season. Okay, so what are the factors, right? What are the things in the playoffs that get inside your head, the things that the Chicago Blackhawks should be better at dealing with than the Edmonton Oilers? Okay, how about going in the other team's building and getting through that first 10 minutes with the crowds going crazy? How about all the media hanging around in the morning asking you all these questions? How about all the TV interviews you have to do, the extra things that come with playoffs, right? How about all the travel going back and forth and back and forth? Hey, none of that stuff exists anymore, okay?
Yeah.
We're playing in somebody else's rink, probably maybe Edmonton, but probably not even Chicago or Edmonton. There are no crowds to deal with, right? There are no crowds have a huge effect on the momentum. Like the momentum is going to be mitigated huge in terms of, I remember going in the old Chicago, well, even the new Chicago building, Lou, when they get one on you early, and man, it feels like they scored three on you. So none of that's going to matter anymore. So I don't know, playoff experience, yeah, it's better to have it than not to have it. But I'll tell you right now, nobody has experienced playing an NHL playoff game in an empty building the way they're going to play it this year.
Well, Chicago started last decade with a Stanley Cup win. If they're to start this decade with a Stanley Cup win, they'll have to first beat the Edmonton Oilers. Louis, Mark, appreciate the insight, and we'll see what happens.